My family texted, "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore." A tee-all, my uncle packed them up. I simply replied, "Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing." By midnight, the family, I am Deborah, 32, the financial backbone of my family since I landed my first consulting job. For years, I quietly paid their bills, funded their dreams, and ignored the one-sided nature of our relationship. Then came that text message on a Tuesday morning, the words cold and cutting. "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore at all." My fingers trembled as I read it, my throat tightening with each word. Had to set boundaries with toxic family members. I grew up in a middle-class suburb of Chicago, in a house that looked perfect from the outside but was constantly teetering on financial collapse. From an early age, I showed a talent for numbers, organizing my allowance into neat categories while other kids blew theirs on candy and toys. This skill wasn't just a quirk, it was survival. By 12, I understood our family budget better than my parents did. My father, Paul, cycled through business ventures like Seasons, a landscaping company that folded in winter, a restaurant supply store that couldn't compete with bigger chains, a consulting firm with no clients. Each failure drained our savings, but never his optimism for the next big thing. "This one will be different, Deborah," he would say, ruffling my hair while I worried about the stack of bills on the kitchen counter. My mother, Donna, compensated for our financial instability by pretending it didn't exist. She bought name-brand everything, hosted dinner parties we couldn't afford, and maintained memberships at clubs where she rubbed elbows with women whose husbands actually made the money mine pretended to. "Appearances matter," she'd say, sliding another credit card bill into the drawer where she thought no one would find it. Meanwhile, my 3 younger siblings lived in the bubble our parents created. James, 2 years younger than me, grew up believing money magically appeared. He played sports, had the latest gaming systems, and never held a summer job. Amanda, 4 years my junior, inherited our mother's taste for luxury, without the shame of debt. She demanded dance lessons, designer clothes, and expensive camps, throwing tantrums when told no. Tyler, the baby at 6 years younger, grew up the most spoiled. His gaming addiction started early, with our parents buying whatever system or game would keep him quiet while they dealt with their crumbling finances. I took a different path. At 16, I worked after school at the local grocery store. During college at the University of Illinois, I juggled 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a 3.9 GPA in finance. No spring break trips, no sorority, no typical college experience, just work study and occasional calls from home when bills came due. My first job after graduation at Anderson Financial Consulting changed everything. A starting salary of $70,000 felt like winning the lottery. Within a month, I paid off my student loans. Within 2, I started helping at home. First, it was just catching up the mortgage when my parents fell 3 months behind, then paying for James's car insurance after his accident, then funding Amanda's influencer career startup costs, then covering Tyler's community college tuition, which he promptly wasted by dropping out. The pattern became clear, but I ignored it. Phone calls from family always started with small talk, but inevitably led to money. My mother's tactics were the most sophisticated, building up to financial requests with subtle guilt trips. "Your father's blood pressure is through the roof with these bills," she'd say, or, "We're so proud of you making all that money in the big city. Remember where you came from, though." My father took a different approach, his pride making direct asks impossible. Instead, he'd mention problems that only money could solve. "The heating system is making that noise again. Probably nothing, but the repair guy wants $2,000 to look at it. Crazy world we live in." James never developed such subtlety. His calls were transactional and always urgent. "Sis, I'm in a bind. Need $1,500 by Friday or they'll repossess the car. You know I'm good for it once this job interview pans out." Amanda's request came wrapped in promises of future fame. "Just $3,000 for this influencer marketing course, and then the sponsorships will roll in. I'll pay you back double." Tyler rarely called at all, preferring to have our parents make his requests. When he did reach out, it was usually late at night after gaming for hours. My rent's due tomorrow. Landlord's being a jerk about it. Can you transfer $2,000? I'll get a job next month. Promise? The only voice of reason in our family was Uncle Rick, my father's older brother. He saw through the charade and pulled me aside at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. They're using you, Deborah, he said, his voice low as we stood in the garage away from the festivities. You know that, right? I nodded, but defended them anyway. They're family. They do the same for me. Uncle Rick's eyebrows rose. Would they, though? When's the last time any of them asked about your life without wanting something? I couldn't answer, and that silence spoke volumes. But still, I continued the pattern. Transferring money, paying bills, financing dreams, all while mine sat on hold. My apartment remained small and functional while I paid for my parents' roof repairs. My car was practical and aging while I made James's luxury car payments. My vacations were weekends in nearby states while I funded Amanda's Instagram-worthy trips to Bali and Greece. Somewhere deep down, I knew Uncle Rick was right, but admitting it meant facing a painful truth. Perhaps my family's love was conditional, based on what I could provide rather than who I was. So I kept giving, hoping that eventually, when I really needed them, they would be there for me too. Last year, the financial demands from my family began to intensify. What had been occasional requests became near-weekly emergencies, each one seemingly more urgent than the last. In February, James called me at work, his voice tight with panic. They're taking my car, Deborah, right now. There's a guy with a tow truck outside my apartment. I could hear the rumble of a diesel engine in the background, validating his story. James, we talked about this. You promised to make the payments after I covered the last 3 months. I know, he said quickly, but that job fell through and then I had some unexpected expenses. Those unexpected expenses, I later discovered through social media, included a weekend in Vegas with his friends. Nevertheless, I transferred $4,000 to his account while still on the phone. The tow truck left. 2 days later, James posted photos of himself with a new gaming system. March brought Amanda's latest business venture. After her attempt at becoming a travel influencer fizzled, despite the expensive trips I funded, she decided her true calling was in beauty products. It's only $10,000 to become a distributor, she explained over lunch, sliding a glossy brochure across the table. The products sell themselves, and the commission structure is amazing. I could be making 6 figures in 6 months. I recognized the pyramid scheme immediately, but Amanda wouldn't hear it. You just don't believe in me, she accused, tears welling in her expertly made-up eyes. Everyone else in this family supports my dreams except you. The irony was painful. I was the only one actually funding her dreams, while the rest of the family offered nothing but verbal encouragement. Still, I compromised and gave her $5,000, half of what she asked for. She took it without thanks and didn't speak to me for 3 weeks. April was Tyler's gaming equipment emergency. His computer couldn't handle the latest releases, and he needed $3,000 for upgrades. When I suggested he get a job to pay for his hobby, my mother called to intervene. He's going through a tough time right now, she explained, as though his 5-year tough time was a temporary phase. This gaming thing could become a career. People make money streaming these days. I pointed out that successful streamers worked incredibly hard, a concept Tyler seemed allergic to. This observation was met with frosty silence, followed by my father calling to express disappointment in my lack of support for your brother's passion. May brought the home repairs, starting with what seemed reasonable, $6,000 for a leaking roof. But somehow, once contractors were involved, additional problems kept being discovered. The $6,000 became $10,000, then $15,000, then $20,000. Each time, I received apologetic calls about unexpected issues that needed immediate attention. During a visit home in June, I noticed something odd. While the exterior repairs seemed minimal for the cost, my mother had a new living room set and my father was sporting an expensive watch. When I cautiously asked about these purchases, my mother became defensive. We're not children, Deborah. We don't need to justify every penny to you. The contractors found wood rot that affected the interior, so we had to replace some furniture. The explanation made no sense, but challenging it further would only create tension. Instead, I tried a different approach at the family dinner that Sunday. I offered to help everyone create financial plans, to set budgets, to work toward independence. I'm happy to help, I said carefully, but I think we need a long-term solution. I found some great financial planning tools we could all use. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. My mother pushed food around her plate. My father cleared his throat repeatedly. My siblings suddenly became fascinated with their phones. Are you saying you won't help us anymore? My mother finally asked, her voice small and hurt. Not at all, I backpedaled quickly. I just thought it might be good for everyone to have more control over their finances. We're doing just fine, my father said, firmly ending the discussion. Later, while helping clean up, I overheard Amanda and my mother in the pantry. She's becoming so controlling, Amanda whispered. It's like because she has money, she thinks she can tell us all what to do. She's always been that way, my mother replied. Miss Perfect with her budgets and her savings accounts. She doesn't understand that not everyone thinks about money all the time like she does. I stood frozen, dish towel in hand, their words cutting deeper than they could know. Was that how they saw me? Not as generous or supportive, but controlling, not as responsible, but obsessed with money. Despite this revelation, I continued helping through the summer and fall, but my questions became more pointed, my transfers more delayed, as I wrestled with what was becoming obvious. I was enabling destructive patterns, not helping my family thrive. The true breaking point came in December. I received a call from a collection agency about a loan in default, one I had never taken out. After several confusing conversations, I discovered the truth. My parents had applied for a $30,000 loan 6 months earlier, using my information as a guarantor without my knowledge or consent. They had made no payments on it. When confronted, they acted as though it was a simple misunderstanding. We thought you knew, my father said dismissively. We mentioned needing a loan for the house repairs, and you said you'd help. This was just easier than transferring money back and forth. You forged my signature, I said, my voice shaking. That's fraud. Don't be so dramatic, my mother interjected. We're family. It's not like we're strangers using your information. That night, I lay awake, a lifetime of patterns suddenly crystal clear. The collection call wasn't a mistake or a one-time lapse in judgment. It was the inevitable escalation of years of financial exploitation disguised as family need. The text arrived at 9:17 on a Tuesday morning. I was in my office preparing for a client meeting when my phone buzzed with a notification from our family group chat, a space typically used for sharing holiday plans or occasional memes. We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore at all. The message came from my mother's number, but was clearly meant to represent the entire family. There were no emojis to soften it, no explanation to contextualize it, just 13 words that effectively excommunicated me from my own family. I stared at my phone, certain I had misread it. My hands began to shake as I read it again, then a third time. Each word seemed to grow larger on the screen, consuming my vision until nothing else existed. Deborah, are you okay? My assistant, Marissa, stood in my doorway, concern etched across her face. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I managed, though my voice sounded distant and hollow even to my own ears. Just need a minute. When she left, I called my mother immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again, with the same result. Next, I called my father. Voicemail. James? Voicemail. Amanda? Voicemail. Tyler didn't even have voicemail set up. It was as if they had coordinated a complete communication blackout. My heart raced, my palms sweated, and the room seemed to spin slightly. Was this about the loan confrontation? Had something happened I wasn't aware of? Was someone hurt or in trouble? The uncertainty was unbearable. Finally, I called Uncle Rick. He answered on the second ring. Deborah, he said, his voice gentle but troubled. I was about to call you. What's going on? I just got a text telling me not to contact anyone in the family, and now no one will answer their phones. A heavy sigh came through the line. I'm at your parents' house right now. There was a family meeting last night that neither of us was invited to. A family meeting about what? About you, primarily. Uncle Rick's voice was apologetic. After you confronted them about the loan, they're claiming you've become too controlling about money, that you're using financial support to manipulate everyone. The accusation hit like a physical blow. That's insane. They committed fraud, using my information, and I'm the one manipulating them? I know, Uncle Rick soothed. It's completely backwards, but they've convinced themselves you've changed. That success has made you look down on them. Your mother was particularly upset about you offering financial counseling at dinner last month. She took it as an insult to her parenting. But the loan, they're minimizing that completely, calling it a misunderstanding that you're blowing out of proportion to punish them. I sank into my chair, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. So this text, this cutting me off completely, that's their response to me questioning one fraudulent loan after years of giving them money? It's worse than that, Uncle Rick admitted reluctantly. They're planning to ride out this arrangement until, and I quote, she realizes what she's lost and apologizes. Apologizes? The word came out as a whisper. They're expecting you'll come crawling back once you realize family is more important than money. They seem to believe you need them more than they need you. I closed my eyes, memories flooding in. Birthdays when my gifts were cash, but I received nothing in return. Holidays where I traveled to them, but they never visited me. Achievements they acknowledged only briefly before steering conversations back to their needs. Do they realize I've given them over $175,000 in the past 5 years? I asked, the number having recently crystallized during a depressing review of my finances. Uncle Rick's whistle was low and long. I knew it was a lot, but not that much. And no, I don't think they conceptualize it that way. In their minds, that's just what family does for each other, though the support only seems to flow in one direction. After hanging up with Uncle Rick, I canceled my meetings for the day, claiming illness. It wasn't far from the truth. I felt physically sick, my stomach churning with a toxic mixture of hurt, anger, and profound disbelief. Back in my apartment that evening, I found myself scrolling through old family photos, searching for clues I might have missed. There we were at James' graduation, my proud smile as I stood next to him, knowing I had paid for the tuition that made that moment possible. Amanda's 21st birthday, where I had not only funded the lavish party, but also flown in to celebrate despite having an important presentation the next day. My parents' 30th anniversary, where I had surprised them with a weekend getaway they had mentioned wanting. In each photo, I searched their faces for genuine affection, for any indication that I was valued beyond what my bank account could provide. The evidence was thin at best. Around midnight, after hours of this painful archaeology through family history, I found myself sobbing on my kitchen floor, an empty wine glass next to me. The pain was physical, a crushing weight on my chest that made breathing difficult. The ultimate betrayal wasn't the loan or even the text, but the realization that perhaps I had never been loved for myself, only for what I could provide. I fell asleep there on the cold tile, emotionally exhausted, my phone clutched in my hand in case anyone from my family called to say it had all been a terrible mistake. No one did. The next morning, I arrived at work puffy and disoriented. I had changed clothes and applied makeup, but no cosmetic could hide the devastation written across my features. I made it through one client call before breaking down in the women's restroom. Lisa, a coworker I knew casually, found me there trying to muffle my sobs in a paper towel. "Deborah," she asked gently, approaching slowly as one might a wounded animal. "Can I help?" Something about her kindness, offered without expectation of return, broke the dam completely. Between hiccuping sobs, I told her everything. The years of financial support, the escalating demands, the fraudulent loan, and finally the text cutting me off for having the audacity to question any of it. Lisa listened without interruption, her expression transitioning from sympathy to outrage on my behalf. When I finished, she took my hands in hers. "Deborah, I need you to hear something that might be hard to accept. What you're describing isn't normal family support. It's financial abuse." The term hit me like cold water. Abuse seemed extreme. They're not bad people. They just take advantage of your generosity, manipulate your emotions to extract money, cut you off when you set a reasonable boundary. Lisa shook her head firmly. "If this was a romantic partner treating you this way, would you hesitate to call it abuse?" She had a point, but accepting it meant reframing my entire family narrative, something too painful to process in a company bathroom. Lisa seemed to sense this and shifted approaches. My sister went through something similar with her ex. She found this therapist who specializes in financial abuse. Let me give you her number, just for a consultation, if nothing else. That afternoon, I called Dr. Taylor's office and was surprised to get an appointment for the following day, a cancellation fortuitously timed. Walking into her warm, minimalist office, I felt both terrified and relieved to finally speak these truths aloud to a professional. Dr. Taylor listened intently as I recounted the same story I had told Lisa, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly allowing me to unspool the tangled history of my family's financial dependence. When I finished, she didn't immediately offer reassurance or validation as Lisa had. Instead, she asked a question that changed everything. "Do you have documentation of how much you've provided to your family over the years?" I nodded. "I keep detailed financial records. It's part of my job." "Would you be willing to calculate the exact amount as homework before our next session? Every loan, every bill payment, every gift with a monetary value." The assignment seemed strange, but I agreed. That evening, I pulled out bank statements, credit card records, and my personal financial tracking spreadsheets. I created a new document titled Family Financial Support and began cataloging every transaction. Small amounts like dinner checks and birthday gifts I lumped together as estimates, but every major transfer, bill payment, and loan was recorded meticulously with dates and amounts. Hours later, I stared at the final figure in disbelief. Since graduating college 8 years ago, I had given my family $178,642, nearly all of it labeled as loans that were never repaid. But the accounting exercise revealed something even more disturbing. I pulled up my current credit report and discovered 3 credit cards I didn't recognize. Further investigation confirmed my suspicions. My parents and James had opened cards in my name. The cards were still active, with balances totaling over $22,000. I dug deeper, checking all possible accounts connected to my Social Security number and credit. 2 cell phone plans for Tyler and Amanda, a furniture store credit line used for my parents' new living room set, a lease agreement for James' apartment that somehow listed me as a co-responsible party. By dawn, I had uncovered over $45,000 in fraudulent debt and financial obligations created without my knowledge or consent. This wasn't just a single loan. This was systematic identity theft perpetrated by my own family. I called Uncle Rick. Time zone differences be damned. "They're still using my information," I said when he answered, my voice eerily calm considering the circumstances. "Credit cards, phone plans, lease agreements, all without my knowledge." Uncle Rick was silent for a long moment. "I had no idea it went that far," he finally said. "I knew about the loan, but not the rest. Did you know they had a family meeting to plan their next financial request before you confronted them about the loan? Were they already planning what else they could get from me, even while using my identity to secure other funds?" Uncle Rick's hesitation told me everything. "James mentioned something about you helping with a business venture, and your parents were talking about a timeshare opportunity." A strange laugh escaped me, halfway between amusement and despair. "They were planning to cut me off if I didn't agree, weren't they? This whole space thing was already their backup plan." "I think so," Uncle Rick admitted. "When you confronted them about the loan, they just accelerated the timeline." As the sun rose on a new day, something crystallized within me. This wasn't love. This wasn't family. This was exploitation, pure and simple. And with that clarity came a resolve I had never felt before. "I need to protect myself," I said, more to myself than to Uncle Rick. "What are you going to do?" I thought of the credit cards still being used, the automatic deposits still flowing into their accounts, the financial hemorrhaging that had been draining me for years. Whatever it takes. My first call that morning wasn't to my family, but to Diane Harrison, the financial advisor who had helped me establish my retirement accounts years earlier. I explained the situation as clinically as possible, my newfound clarity allowing me to speak without breaking down. "This is more common than you might think," Diane said, her voice carrying the weight of experience. "But you've caught it before it completely destroyed your financial future, which puts you ahead of many people in similar situations." She helped me create a comprehensive plan to disentangle my finances from my family's. First priority, stopping all automatic payments and transfers. Second, contacting credit bureaus to report fraudulent accounts. Third, securing all existing accounts with new passwords and security questions my family couldn't guess. Next, I called Robert Jensen, an attorney specializing in identity theft. Though he typically dealt with cases involving strangers rather than family members, he understood the complexity of my situation. Family identity theft is actually more damaging and more difficult to resolve than traditional cases, he explained. There's the financial component, but also the emotional betrayal, which often prevents victims from taking necessary legal action. I won't let emotions stop me from protecting myself, I assured him, though my voice wavered slightly. Good, because I need to be clear. What your family has done constitutes criminal fraud. You have every right to pursue charges. The thought of my parents or siblings facing criminal charges made my stomach turn despite everything. Let's start with stopping the bleeding and securing my identity. I'll decide about charges later. Between Diane and Robert, I spent the day executing a detailed financial protection plan. By evening, I had canceled all automatic transfers to family members, frozen my credit at all 3 major bureaus, reported fraudulent accounts and begun dispute processes, changed all passwords, security questions, and contact information on legitimate accounts, documented all unauthorized accounts with dates, amounts, and available evidence, set up fraud alerts and identity monitoring services, drafted cease and desist letters regarding unauthorized use of my personal information. As I worked through these steps, my phone remained silent. No calls or texts from family members wondering why their financial lifelines had suddenly been cut. The silence confirmed what I already knew. They were waiting for me to crack first, to come begging for reconciliation. Around 8 that evening, I finally crafted my response to the family text. I considered lengthy explanations, emotional appeals, and detailed accountings of all I had done for them. In the end, I opted for simplicity. Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing. I hit send and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. 7 words that reclaimed my power and set boundaries that should have been established years ago. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. My mother called 3 times in succession. My father texted asking what I meant exactly. James sent a string of messages about a misunderstanding. Amanda wanted to know if I was seriously being this petty. Tyler, typically the least communicative, sent a single text. What about my phone bill? I silenced my phone and poured myself a glass of wine, savoring the quiet satisfaction of finally standing up for myself. When I checked my messages an hour later, Uncle Rick had sent a single text that made me smile for the first time in days. Proud of you. They're panicking. I called him back immediately. Are you still at their house? I was, he said, a note of amusement in his voice. But I left after your text landed. You should have seen their faces, Deborah. Your mother read it aloud and went white as a sheet. Your father started immediately calculating which bills would bounce first. Your siblings were all on their phones checking account balances. Good, I said, surprised at how little guilt I felt. They needed a reality check. That's putting it mildly. Your mother tried to convince me to talk to you, to tell you that family comes first and money isn't everything. I laughed without humor. The irony is apparently lost on her completely. When I pointed out that they were the ones who cut you off first, she said that was different, that they just needed a break from your financial controlling behavior. When I asked how your behavior was controlling but their expectations weren't, she asked me to leave. You didn't have to do that, Uncle Rick. Yes, I did. I packed up my overnight bag and told them I couldn't support how they were treating you. It was long overdue. Honestly, I've watched this dynamic for years and said too little. His solidarity brought tears to my eyes. The first that day that weren't from pain. Thank you. Don't thank me. I should have said something sooner. But Deborah, be prepared. This is just the beginning of their reaction. Once they realize you're serious, things will escalate. He was right. Within 2 hours, the tone of messages shifted from confusion to anger. My father sent a lengthy text about family loyalty and how blood is thicker than water. My mother left a tearful voicemail, claiming they had only asked for space for my negativity, not for financial support to end. James began alternating between threats and pleas, while Amanda posted a vague social media message about toxic family members who only care about money. Through it all, I maintained my silence, each ignored message strengthening my resolve rather than weakening it. The family that had asked for no contact was suddenly desperate to reach me, the irony so thick it would have been comical under different circumstances. That night, I slept better than I had in years, waking to dozens more missed calls and messages. Among them was a text from Uncle Rick. They're planning to show up at your apartment tonight. Fair warning. I spent the day preparing for the confrontation, not by crafting arguments or gathering financial evidence, but by centering myself in my decision. I cleaned my apartment, bought fresh flowers, ordered my favorite takeout, and created a space that reflected my new commitment to self-respect. When the doorbell rang at 7:30 that evening, I was ready. By midnight, my family was in complete crisis mode. The confrontation at my apartment door had not gone as they expected. My mother arrived first, armed with tears and guilt, followed shortly by my father and James. Amanda and Tyler apparently couldn't be bothered to make the trip, though they joined via speakerphone once the initial conversation turned hostile. I had allowed them into my living room, but set immediate boundaries. I'll listen to what you have to say, but I won't be changing my mind about the financial support. My mother's tears dried up remarkably quickly when she realized emotional manipulation wouldn't work. This is about the loan, isn't it? We were going to pay you back. This is about 8 years of one-way financial support, unauthorized accounts in my name, and a family dynamic that values me only for what I can provide, I replied calmly. My father tried a different approach, appealing to my sense of duty. We raised you, put food on the table, kept a roof over your head. That's what families do for each other. Yes, parents are supposed to provide for their children. That's the commitment you made when you had me. I never made a commitment to support 4 adults indefinitely. James paced the room, the most visibly agitated. So you're just cutting us off completely, just like that? What about my lease? What about the car payment due next week? Those are your responsibilities, James. You're 30 years old. It's time you learn to support yourself. The conversation devolved from there, cycling through every emotional manipulation tactic in their arsenal. My mother brought up childhood illnesses they had nursed me through. My father mentioned college application essays he had proofread. James reminded me of times he had picked me up from work when my car was in the shop, conveniently forgetting I had paid for those repairs. Amanda, via speakerphone, took a different approach. I thought you believed in me, in my dreams. Was that all lies? I do believe you're capable of achieving your dreams, Amanda, but not while someone else funds your life. Real success comes from building something yourself. Tyler, typically quiet, finally spoke up. What am I supposed to do about my phone? It's going to get shut off. Get a job, Tyler, like everyone else in the world. The back and forth lasted hours, with my family cycling through anger, bargaining, guilt, and threats. My father suggested they could take legal action since I had promised to help them financially. My mother hinted she would tell extended family members I had abandoned them. James bluntly stated he would default on the lease that fraudulently listed me as a cosigner, damaging my credit further. Through it all, I maintained my position with a calm I didn't know I possessed. When they finally left around 11:30, having secured no commitments from me, the true panic began. Uncle Rick called around 1:00 in the morning. They just had an emergency family meeting. At this hour, I was still awake, too wired from the confrontation to sleep. Your father is realizing the mortgage payment is due in 3 days, with no way to cover it. Your mother is worried about the minimum payments on those store credit cards. James discovered his car insurance lapsed because the automatic payment from your account didn't go through. I felt a twinge of worry, quickly suppressed. Those aren't my problems anymore. I know, and I agree. I'm just keeping you informed. They're making desperate plans. Your mother is calling her side of the family tomorrow to ask for loans. Your father is talking about selling his coin collection. James is looking at roommate listings online. Sounds like exactly what they should have been doing all along, I observed. The next few days brought the financial reality crashing down on each family member differently. Amanda's Instagram, once filled with brunches, shopping hauls, and tropical vacations, suddenly featured posts about simple pleasures and finding joy in everyday moments as her lifestyle rapidly contracted. James, faced with actual job hunting for the first time in years, discovered that his resume gaps and lack of experience made finding employment challenging. His social media updates shifted from party photos to complaints about unfair hiring practices and impossible job markets. Tyler's gaming streams abruptly ended when his high-speed internet was disconnected for non-payment. He was forced to move back home when his rent check bounced, leading to further strain in the already tense household. My parents faced the most significant adjustments. Their mortgage grace period ended, incurring late fees they couldn't afford. Credit card minimum payments were missed, resulting in penalty APRs that made their debt even more unmanageable. The carefully constructed facade of middle-class stability began crumbling visibly, with neighbors noticing the lawn going unmowed and repair projects abandoned mid-completion. Through Uncle Rick, I heard about these developments but remained firm in my decision. He became my eyes and ears in the family, keeping me informed without pressuring me to re-engage. A week after my financial separation, my mother showed up at my apartment again, this time alone. Her appearance had changed dramatically in just 7 days. The designer clothes were replaced with simple jeans and a sweater. Her perfectly maintained hair showed roots, and her nails were bare of their usual professional manicure. 5 minutes, I said, allowing her in but remaining standing. Deborah, we're really struggling, she began, her voice lacking its usual theatrical quality. The mortgage is past due and the bank is calling. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. James might lose his apartment. I understand this is difficult, I said evenly, but these are natural consequences of financial decisions you've all made over many years. We're family, she said, as if those 2 words explained and excused everything. Family doesn't commit fraud against each other. Family doesn't value money over relationship. Family doesn't cut someone off for setting reasonable boundaries. Her expression hardened. So this is punishment. You're teaching us a lesson. No, Mom, I'm simply allowing you all to experience reality. Most adults live with financial responsibility for their own lives. She left shortly after, no resolution reached. But something had shifted. The desperate panic was evolving into reluctant acceptance that the situation had permanently changed. My father called the next day, his approach far more aggressive than my mother's had been. Your mother is devastated. Is that what you wanted? To hurt her? To hurt all of us? What I wanted was a healthy relationship with my family that wasn't based on financial exploitation, I replied, keeping my voice calm despite my racing heart. Nobody exploited you. We asked for help and you gave it. Nobody forced you. Did I consent to the credit cards opened in my name, the loan using my information as guarantor, the cell phone plans, the lease agreement? His momentary silence acknowledged what he wouldn't say aloud. We were desperate. And now you're experiencing the consequences of that desperation without using me as a safety net, that's all. After my father's call came more family attempts at reconciliation, all with strings attached. James suggested we talk things through over dinner, but let slip that he needed help with an urgent car situation. Amanda proposed a sister day that somehow included stopping by a store where she had her eye on a business investment piece. Even Tyler reached out. His message transparently mentioning his gaming equipment had been pawned by our father to cover bills. Through it all, I maintained my boundaries with increasing confidence. Uncle Rick reported that a family meeting had been called specifically to develop a strategy for getting me to forgive and forget. They recruited extended family members to reach out, thinking I might respond differently to aunts, uncles, and cousins, less directly involved in the financial exploitation. Most relatives took my family's side, initially having heard only their version of events, but a few, like Cousin Jennifer, reached out with more nuanced perspectives. They did the same thing to me, she confided during a coffee meetup. Not to the same extent, but after I got my nursing degree, suddenly everyone needed loans for emergencies. It took me 2 years of therapy to stop feeling guilty for saying no. These conversations reinforced that I wasn't alone, wasn't overreacting, and wasn't wrong to protect myself. Each day of maintained boundaries built my confidence and clarity further. The first week without contact became 2, then a month. I channeled my energy into healing, meeting with Dr. Taylor as my family's attempts to manipulate me back into the financial supporter role failed repeatedly. They were forced to find other solutions. Uncle Rick reported that James had finally taken a job at a local warehouse, far below his self-perceived worth, but steady employment nonetheless. Amanda had begun working as a receptionist, scaling back her influencer ambitions to weekend projects. Tyler had taken a retail position, his gaming relegated to evenings only. My parents faced the hardest adjustment. Their decades of financial mismanagement required the most significant lifestyle changes. They began working with a credit counseling service, sold one of their cars, and dramatically downsized their spending habits. These changes weren't immediate transformations or Hollywood-worthy redemption stories. They were reluctant, often resentful adjustments to a new reality where actions had consequences and financial adulthood could no longer be outsourced to their daughter. And through it all, I discovered something surprising. I was happier, lighter, and more peaceful than I had been in years, despite the family turmoil. Without the constant drain on my finances and emotional energy, I began to flourish in ways I hadn't known were possible. 6 months after that life-changing text message, my world had transformed in ways I never could have predicted. The apartment I had kept small and functional to divert money to my family was now a 2-bedroom condo I had purchased myself, decorated exactly as I wanted. My savings account, once perpetually drained by family emergencies, now held a healthy reserve for actual emergencies. My investment portfolio, previously stunted by constant withdrawals, was growing steadily, securing my future rather than funding others' present wants. But the financial improvements paled in comparison to the emotional transformation. Through consistent work with Dr. Taylor, I had begun unraveling the complex web of codependency, guilt, and misplaced responsibility that had defined my family relationships. Financial codependency often mirrors addiction dynamics, Dr. Taylor explained, during one particularly insightful session. You were the enabler, making it possible for your family to avoid the natural consequences of their choices, and like many enablers, you did it out of love, believing you were helping. I thought if I just gave enough, they would eventually become self-sufficient, I admitted, or at least appreciate the sacrifices I was making. That's the enabler's hope, but enabling typically prevents growth rather than fostering it. By removing your financial support, you've actually given them something far more valuable: the opportunity to develop their own capabilities and resilience. This reframing helped ease the lingering guilt I felt, particularly during holidays or family birthdays I now celebrated from a distance. James has been at the warehouse job for 4 months now, Uncle Rick reported over dinner at my new place. Longest he's ever held employment. His supervisor actually mentioned potential for advancement if he stays another 6 months. Really? I couldn't hide my surprise. James had never shown such persistence. Necessity is a powerful motivator. He's also moved to a cheaper apartment with 2 roommates. Still complains about it constantly, but he's making it work. Amanda's journey showed similar progress. After 3 months as a receptionist, she had been recognized for her social media skills and given additional responsibilities managing the company's online presence, a legitimate use of her interests that came with steady pay and benefits. Tyler had perhaps shown the most dramatic change, though, from the lowest starting point. After 2 months at his retail job, he had enrolled in community college classes in computer science, attending evening courses after work. My parents' transformation was slower and less complete. They had downsized significantly, selling their house and moving to a 2-bedroom apartment. My father had taken a position as a sales associate at a hardware store, swallowing his pride to earn a steady paycheck for the first time in decades. My mother had started selling some of her craft projects online, generating modest income while adjusting to their new financial reality. None of these changes had come easily or without resentment. Through Uncle Rick, I heard about family gatherings where my name was still mentioned with mixtures of anger and hurt. I was still cast as the villain in their narrative, the daughter who had abandoned her family in their time of need. But beneath the resentment, respect was grudgingly growing as they witnessed each other developing capabilities they hadn't known they possessed. 3 months after the cutoff, I had begun building a new social circle independent of family obligations. Lisa from work had become a close friend, introducing me to her book club where I met women with healthy boundaries and reciprocal relationships. I joined a hiking group that explored local trails on weekends, activities I had always wanted to pursue but never had time for when family emergencies consumed my weekends. I even began dating again, something that had been on indefinite hold while my emotional and financial resources were directed toward family. Michael, a landscape architect I met through the hiking group, showed me what a balanced relationship could look like, one where both parties contributed equally and respected each other's boundaries. 5 months after the cutoff, I received my first direct communication from a family member other than Uncle Rick. My mother sent a text that simply read, "The credit counselor has been helpful. Thank you for suggesting financial planning back then, even though we weren't ready to hear it." It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement, however small, that perhaps my perspective hadn't been entirely wrong. I responded with a simple, "I'm glad it's helping," neither overly warm nor completely cold. 6 months to the day after receiving that devastating group text, another message arrived from my mother. This one longer and more reflective. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about our relationship and how things developed over the years. I realize now that we came to depend on you in ways that weren't fair or healthy. I can't speak for everyone, but I want you to know that I miss you. Not your financial help, but you, my daughter. If you're ever open to talking, I would like that, on your terms." This message brought tears to my eyes. Not from pain, but from the recognition that perhaps healing was possible for my family too. Not immediate reconciliation, not a return to old patterns, but something new and potentially healthier. After discussing it with Dr. Taylor, I crafted a careful response setting clear conditions for any potential rebuilding of relationship. Acknowledgement of the financial exploitation that had occurred. Concrete steps to address the fraudulent accounts still impacting my credit. Commitment to financial independence going forward. Respect for my boundaries without guilt or manipulation. To my surprise, my mother agreed to all conditions, adding, "We have a long way to go, but I want to try." 2 weeks later, we met for coffee at a neutral location, our first face-to-face conversation without financial undercurrents in years. It was awkward, tense at moments, but also contained glimmers of a potential new relationship based on who we were rather than what I could provide. Similar tentative reconnections began with other family members. James thanked me for a job reference I had provided through a colleague, his gratitude seemingly genuine rather than a prelude to asking for money. Amanda shared news of her promotion without any hint of needing investment for side projects. Even Tyler sent a simple message about passing his first college courses. These weren't fairy tale reconciliations. Years of unhealthy patterns couldn't be undone in months, but they were steps towards something more balanced, more authentic, and ultimately more loving than what had existed before. The most profound change, however, was within myself. I had discovered a strength I never knew I possessed, the ability to stand firm in my worth beyond what I could provide materially to others. I had learned that true generosity comes from choice, not obligation or manipulation. And perhaps most importantly, I had discovered that family who truly loves you wants your well-being, not just your wallet. The journey from financial enabler to empowered individual had been painful, but the freedom on the other side was worth every difficult moment. I now understood that sometimes the greatest love you can show family is allowing them to stand on their own, and the greatest love you can show yourself is believing you deserve better than exploitation disguised as love. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? And as this story quietly slips away into the shadows of your mind, dissolving into the silent spaces where memory and mystery entwine, understand that this was never just a story. It was an awakening. A raw pulse of human truth wrapped in whispered secrets and veiled emotions. Every word a shard of fractured reality. Every sentence a bridge between worlds seen and unseen. Between the light of revelation and the dark abyss of what remains unsaid. It is here, in this liminal space, that stories breathe. Their most potent magic stirring the deepest chambers of your soul, provoking the unspoken fears, the buried desires, and the fragile hopes that cling to your heart like fragile embers. This is the power of these tales, these digital confessions whispered into the void, where anonymity becomes the mask for truth and every viewer becomes the keeper of secrets too heavy to carry alone. And now that secret, that trembling echo of someone else's reality, becomes part of your own shadowed narrative, intertwining with your thoughts, awakening that undeniable curiosity, the insatiable hunger to know what lies beyond. What stories have yet to be told? What mysteries hover just out of reach, waiting for you to uncover them? So hold on to this feeling, this electric thread of wonder and unease, for it is what connects us all across the vast, unseen web of human experience. And if your heart races, if your mind lingers on the what-ifs and the maybes, then you know the story has done its work. Its magic has woven itself into the fabric of your being. So before you step away from this realm, remember this. Every story you encounter here is a whispered invitation to look deeper, to listen harder, to embrace the darkness and the light alike. And if you found yourself lost, found yourself changed, even slightly, then honor this connection by keeping the flame alive. Like this video if the story haunted you. Subscribe to join the fellowship of seekers who chase the unseen truths, and ring the bell to be the first to greet the next confession, the next shadow, the next revelation waiting to rise from the depths. Because here, we don't merely tell stories, we summon them. We become vessels for the forgotten, the hidden, and the unspoken. And you, dear listener, have become part of this sacred ritual. So until the next tale finds you in the quiet hours, keep your senses sharp, your heart open, and never stop chasing the whispers in the silence.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Take care. Good luck. After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind, or maybe it has brought back some old memories. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories, and they connect all of us. Everyone has their own unique journey in life, and we all try to understand the world in our own way. These kinds of moments remind us that we are all human, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and always learning something new. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with your friends. Your thoughts and feedback are always valuable to us, as they motivate us to create even better content. Every story has its own unique angle, and our goal is to understand everyone's perspective and make our content diverse and relatable. Stories like these help us realize that life's journey is different for everyone, and by hearing other stories, we learn something new. You can also share your own stories with us. Your experiences are valuable to us as well. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave your feedback. We aim to create content that brightens your mind and gives you new ideas every time. If you've already seen this video before, your feedback is still important. With every piece of feedback, we can improve our content and bring a new perspective to our viewers. Today, what we saw was just a small part of the many stories shared on Reddit and across the world. It's a reminder of how we all try to understand life by sharing our experiences with each other. This video was only an example of how we try to connect with others through storytelling, learning about different sides of life. We hope to continue sharing such stories that help us all learn and grow together. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon. If you haven't already, please like and follow for more amazing content. Your support keeps us going, and we will strive to bring you more thought-provoking and heartwarming stories. Until next time, take care and stay curious.